The thermostat on the garage wall read 41 degrees. I remember that number specifically because I stood there long enough to watch it drop one more digit while I unzipped the sleeping bag Frank used to take camping, back when his knees still let him kneel on hard ground. It was Wednesday night, the night before Thanksgiving. 31 years I had hosted this dinner in this house, and I was standing in my own garage next to a rusted paint can shelf, unrolling an air mattress against my late husband's workbench because there wasn't room for me upstairs anymore. Through the door that connects the garage to the kitchen, I could hear Danielle directing someone about where to stack the folding chairs, 40 place settings. She'd mentioned the number twice that week, like it was something to be proud of. I hadn't been asked. Not about the chairs, not about the guest list, not about where I'd be sleeping in my own house. The door cracked open. Danielle's face appeared in the gap, backlit by the kitchen light, pleasant as ever. "You'll be more comfortable out here anyway, Margaret. Less noise for your ears." The door clicked shut before I could answer. I stood there a moment, the cold settling into my hands, and I thought about the folder in my filing cabinet upstairs that she'd never once asked to see. I didn't say a word. I just picked up my keys. Before I tell you what happened next, if you're new here, welcome. This channel is where I share stories about the women who get underestimated by their own families and what happens when they stop explaining themselves. If that sounds like a story you need today, hit subscribe now because you won't want to miss how this one ends. To understand why I didn't argue that night, you have to understand what I did for a living for 27 years. I was a title examiner for the county recorder's office, the person who reads property records for a living, who traces ownership back through decades of deeds, liens, and refinances before anyone can legally buy or sell a home. I knew, better than almost anyone in that family, exactly what a piece of paper could prove and what it couldn't. Frank and I bought this house in 1988. He was a contractor, and over the years he built onto it twice. An addition in 1994 for what became Marcus's bedroom, and another in 2003 for the sunroom I'd wanted since we moved in. Frank paid for both with cash from side jobs, which meant neither addition ever touched the mortgage. We paid the house off completely in 2011, 3 years before Frank got sick. After he passed in 2015, I did something I never mentioned to Marcus or Danielle. In 2016, I refinanced the house. Not because I needed the money, but because my accountant recommended pulling some equity out for a more stable retirement account after Frank's medical bills. The refinance closed in March of that year. My name, and only my name, is on that mortgage. Not Marcus's, not Danielle's, just mine. I tell you this now because it's the kind of detail that sits quietly in a filing cabinet for years, doing nothing until the day someone needs to remember it exists. Standing in that garage, cold seeping through the concrete floor, I thought about it clearly for the first time in a long while. Marcus moved back in 3 years ago, after his company did a round of layoffs. He and Danielle had been renting an apartment across town, and when the layoff hit, they asked if they could stay with me for a few months while he found something new. I said yes without hesitating. That's what you do for your children. The few months became a year. The year became 3. They took over the finished basement, and somewhere along the way, temporary stopped being a word anyone used out loud. I never asked for rent. I covered the property taxes, the utilities, the homeowner's insurance, same as I always had. Thanksgiving had always been mine to host. 31 years running, in that same house, at that same table Frank built with his own hands. Family came to me. I slept in my own bed the night before and the night after, same as every year. That was the rhythm of it. Nothing about that year suggested it was about to change, which is, I think, exactly why it hit the way it did. I found out about the guest list the same way I found out about most things that year, by accident. I came downstairs Wednesday morning to find Danielle at the kitchen table with a legal pad, counting names out loud to herself. 40. She said it like she was announcing a milestone. "Danielle, whose 40 are we talking about?" She looked up, surprised I was even asking. "My side. Aunt Carol's coming, and her whole family, and my cousins from Ohio. It's going to be so full this year." I asked when this had been decided, since I hadn't heard a word about it. She waved a hand, already moving on to seating logistics. It just kind of came together. Marcus said it was fine. I asked where everyone would be sleeping since the house had exactly 3 bedrooms and one of them was mine. That's when she told me, still writing on her legal pad, not even looking up. Guests would take the 2 spare rooms. She and Marcus needed my room for coat storage and overflow seating. It just makes more sense, layout-wise. And I'd be more comfortable in the garage, where she'd already set up an air mattress. Less noise for my ears, less foot traffic for my hip. I asked Marcus later that afternoon if he'd actually agreed to this. He wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "It's just one night, Mom. Try not to make it a whole thing." I went looking for Danielle again that evening, thinking there'd been some misunderstanding I could still straighten out. I found her in the hallway outside what used to be my bedroom, arranging folding chairs. "Danielle, this is still my house." She didn't even pause what she was doing. "It's really our house now anyway, don't you think? At your age?" I stood there for a moment. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't remind her whose name was on the deed, or the mortgage, or the property tax bill that came every year addressed to me and no one else. I said, "Of course." And I went to pack a bag. I didn't cry in the car. I drove the 12 minutes to the Holiday Inn off Route 9 with both hands on the wheel and the radio off, and somewhere around the second stoplight, I noticed I wasn't angry either. What I felt, mostly, was clarity. The same clarity I used to get at work when a property record didn't match what a family was claiming. That quiet, procedural click of, there it is. Except this time, the record in question was my own life. I checked into a room and sat on the edge of the bed with my coat still on. I didn't call Marcus. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I started making a list in my head. Deed, refinance paperwork, will, Robert's office number. I fell asleep before I finished it, but I knew where I'd start in the morning. I was at the bank before it opened at 9, waiting in my car with a coffee I didn't finish. The safety deposit box hadn't been touched in years. Inside, Frank's death certificate, our marriage license, and a manila folder I hadn't opened since 2016. I recognized my own handwriting on the tab. Refinance, March. From there, I drove to the county recorder's office, the building I'd walked into 5 days a week for 27 years. It felt strange sitting on the visitor's side of the counter instead of standing behind it. I requested a current copy of the deed and the full mortgage history on the house, same as I would have pulled for any stranger who walked in with a case number. I didn't open the folder until I was back in my car. I made myself read it slowly. Owner of record, refinance date, signatories. One line down the page, everything was exactly as I remembered it, exactly as I'd left it in 2016. If you've ever had a moment where a piece of paper confirmed something you already knew in your gut, you understand exactly what that silence in the car felt like. Drop a comment if you've had one of those moments yourself, and stay with me, because what I did with that folder next is where this story actually starts.
I called Priya first. We'd worked the front counter together for 19 years before she took over as deputy recorder, and she still answered her direct line on a holiday week. "Margaret, it's been a while." I asked her to walk me through the 2016 refinance one more time. She pulled it up while we talked and confirmed it plainly. Sole signatory. No co-borrowers. No liens filed since. Marcus's name appeared nowhere on the instrument, not even as an authorized occupant. "Why are you asking, Margaret? Everything all right?" I told her it was just tidying up some paperwork. Next I called Robert, who'd handled Frank's estate and my own will. His office was closed for the holiday, but he picked up his cell on the second ring. I asked him, plainly, what my current will said about the house. He didn't need to look it up. As it stands, it goes to Marcus outright. No conditions. He paused. "Is there a reason you're asking me this on Thanksgiving morning, Margaret?" I told him there was, and that I'd like to come in Monday to discuss some changes. He just said, "Monday works." 9 o'clock. I spent the rest of that morning at a small table in the motel lobby, the folder open in front of me, cross-checking dates against a legal pad. By 11, I had everything confirmed. By noon, my phone started ringing. The first call was Danielle. "Margaret, hey, are you coming back soon? We could use a hand with the turkey, it's bigger than the one you usually do." Her voice was breezy, entirely unaware that anything had shifted. I told her I had some errands to finish and would stop by that evening. Marcus texted 20 minutes later. Mom, you good? Danielle said you left kind of upset. Don't want you overreacting about the room thing, it's just one night. I looked at that message for a long moment. Overreacting. As if 31 years of hosting and a night in a motel parking lot were the same order of magnitude as a scheduling mix-up. I texted back 4 words. I'll come by tonight. He replied with a thumbs up, already certain the matter was closed. I arrived just after 7, when the house was loudest. I didn't go in through the front. I went through the garage, the way I'd left, and found Marcus and Danielle in the kitchen. I'm not staying for dinner, I said. I need 5 minutes. I set the folder on the counter between the gravy boat and a stack of unused napkins. This house is mine, I said. Not ours, not eventually mine, outright, since 1988, refinanced solely in my name in 2016. Neither of your names appears on the deed or the mortgage. Not as an owner, not as a co-signer, not as anything. Danielle opened her mouth. I kept going, evenly. My will currently leaves this house to Marcus, no conditions attached. That will is being revised starting Monday morning at 9 o'clock. I'd rather you both hear that from me directly than find out later. Marcus's face had gone pale. Danielle said nothing at all, which was, in its own way, the loudest response either of them could have given me. I picked up the folder and left before anyone thought to offer me a plate.
I ordered room service that night, a plain turkey sandwich, oddly fitting, and ate it sitting up in bed with the television off. I didn't feel triumphant, exactly. Mostly, I felt tired, the way you do after finishing a job you'd put off too long. I thought about Frank, and what he'd have said about the addition he built with his own hands now sitting inside a house Danielle had called ours. I think he'd have laughed, quietly, the way he did when something confirmed what he'd suspected all along. Marcus called the next morning. His voice was smaller than I'd heard it in years. Mom, can we talk? I looked out the motel window at the parking lot at nothing in particular, and I didn't answer right away. Marcus wanted to talk. I hadn't decided yet if I wanted to listen. If you want to know what I said to him, and what happened at Robert's office that Monday morning, subscribe and stay close, because part 2 is coming, and it isn't the ending you're expecting.